So my paper will address a racial study conducted under the Nazis as a part of coerced research. This is a study carried out on persons who were not free volunteers. I will first outline the background of the circumstances of the study of 106 Jewish families in Tarnow in 1942, and will continue with my search for the fate and biographies of the investigated people. In this regard, I would like to discuss with you the photographs in the context of the Holocaust in the Generalgouvernement, and finally, I would like to raise moral and ethical questions regarding the handling of such collections and presenting it to the public. So, in the course of the survey of the collection in 1998, I discovered a card box labeled on the bottom as Army Postal Package. And on one side of the box, a paper was fixed, labeled with Tarnow Juden 1942, 1942, and actually this is the backside of an invitation card for a lecture of Viennese Racial Hygienic Society. The box contained anthropological photographs sorted by numbers, and further I found folders with handwritten tables and statistical evaluations which are comparable to Excel files today. And one folder contained a list of family names. The study was a joint project of two Austrian anthropologists, and Friede Friedmann from the Institut für Deutsche Ostarbeit, the IDO Institute for German Labor in the East, in Krakow, and Dora Maria Kalisch-Könner from the Anthropological University Institute in Vienna. And involved was also Anton Blügel, another Austrian scientist who headed the section of the Institute for Racial and Ethnic Research at the IDO. The IDO Institute was opened in 1940 by Hans Frank, and it had several sections, economy, history, and other sections, and amongst them was one on anthropology, ethnology, and Jewish study, and this section had around 30 staff members. The correspondence of the two anthropologists has been addressed in various books. For instance, From Germany Turns Eastward by Michael Burley, or by Architects of Annihilation by Götz Ali and Susanne Heim, or From Racism to Genocide by Gretchen Schaft. So this is in previous to the study, we do not know which measures are being planned for the coming months for the resettlement of the Jewish population. Valuable material could be lost by waiting too long. Our material will be torn from its natural family surrounding, and work must be conducted under very difficult circumstances. This is just an outline of the correspondence. And the correspondence became, on the one hand, an example of how the war for women seemingly opened up new career opportunities, and on the other hand, it became a reference for the research attitude of Nazi racial scientists, ignoring the fate of the Jewish population, using them as a material for opportunity for research. But to date, the collection of photographs that emerged in the course of the study has not been considered in the context of Holocaust studies. Today, we are aware that the information which were gathered, the photographs and the biographical informations, are in many cases, the last pictures and data of persons and families who were murdered in the Holocaust. So these are what was carried out in this study: biographical data, measurement sheet, photographs, not only photographs of the faces, but also colored photographs and photographs of the naked body, but the last two are not preserved. And hair samples, so I've hand and fingerprints and hair samples. So in the study, there were, these are the persons which were involved in the study. It was the Austrian anthropologists, Elfriede Friedmann and Dora Maria Kalisch. Then the secretary of the Viennese Institute, the photographer was from the Krakow Institute for Photography, staff members of the IDO, we do not know who and how many, and the officials from the Kreishauptmann, the Stadtkommissar, and the SS who were carrying out together the study, and the Judenrat had to assist. So besides In total, 565 men, women and children, who in part came from other cities, such as Krakow, had been subjected and degraded to objects for the anthropological research. A few weeks after the photographs were taken, the deportation and mass murder of thousands of Jewish residents of Tarnow began. Friedman and Karlich had been aware of the fate of Jews. So a few weeks after, in June, the first wave of deportation began, where 10,000 Jews were killed in the city and at the cemetery, and 3,000 were transported to the Belzec extermination camp. And immediately after the deportation, the ghetto was sealed off, and 20,000 Jews had to move in, and with new refugees, it grew up to 40,000. And in autumn 1942, another wave of deportation took place. And this was just a moment when Friedman and Karlich wrote a letter. I cannot investigate Jews in Galicia anymore. There are still 8,000 left from the Jews of Tarnow, but as SS Obersturmführer Bernhard told me, almost none of ours are left. Today, our material has a rarity value. So in September 1943, 5,000 to 7,000 Jews were sent to Auschwitz, and another 3,000 to Plaszow, and a very small number to the Sepne camp. After the war, the Edo records, this is a preliminary report which was given already in 1942. And there it's saying that's a comparison material for Viennese studies on Jews, what was the intention. So, and this is just to give you, after the war, the files ended up in various institutions, in Krakow, in Warsaw, in Berlin, in Vienna, and also in Washington. And these are an example of the photographs which ended up in the Natural History Museum in Vienna. And this is an example, you might not see it, but of the biographical data sheet where they collected the date of birth and the places of birth and even the parents' and the grandparents' name. So in 2002, I searched all names in the files of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, and with the help of the Survivors Registry, I found also 2 survivors. I wrote them a letter, and both of them responded immediately. The wife of one survivor was a close friend of another one, which I also got in contact, and I sent her also the photographs and the information. And all 3 of them were the only one that survived of their families, and none of them could remember the investigation. So in total, during my research now in Yad Vashem, I was able to search all the pages of testimonies in the Hall of Names, in the ITS record, and in the archival and library records, and in the Visual History Archive of the Shoah Foundation. In total, I found 37 members of 28 families who had survived, and which is around 5% of all men, women, and children of this anthropological investigation. 7 men and 2 women had been during the war in Russia. 4 men could escape the ghetto or a camp and went into hiding. 12 men and 8 women survived the concentration camp. And of 3 men and women who had survived, I found no further information. So from 37 survivors, I could also find 11 testimonies. So, but this means also that of 78 families, I found no information that somebody had survived. And from these 78 families, of 29, I found pages of testimonies in the Hall of Names, which means that somebody remembered a friend, a relative, or a family and wrote a page of testimony. But on the other hand, of 49 families, I couldn't find any traces in the archives and records, and all family, also that somebody survived or also of the death circumstances. So coming back to the photographs, I will, at the end, I will present you some face of some of the families which I found. So this is Sacher Israeler. He was 11 years old when he had been forced to be studied by the anthropologists. He was deported from Tarnow to Plaszow and then to Mirlic and was liberated in Flossenbürg, and he's the only survivor of his family. So this is the picture of him which was taken by the anthropologist. This is the measurement sheet, And here you can see he was born in 1931. He spoke Polish, he was very good at the school, he liked swimming, skiing, ice skating, and tobogganing, and he had 4 sisters and 1 brother. And this is another source where I found 58, which were in the Krakow, were registered in 1940 in the Krakow ghetto. And what is very interesting, that together with these files you have photographs, but which are civilian photographs, like passport photographs. So this is from Sacher Israeler in the ITS record, where you see what I found, and he's one of the was one of the child tracing services where people looked for him, and there was also a photograph from him. And he also gave a Shoah Foundation interview, and the photographs you see here are all the photographs he had from his family, which existed. And when I visited him in 2002, I came with all the sheets and the photographs, and the first thing was show me the photographs. I was also not prepared for this, but since he couldn't remember, he didn't believe that this exists. And what I was not aware that of 2 of his sisters, I brought him the first photographs. He had none before. So this is another family. This is the family Eisenbach, and Franja Haveland survived. And these are also almost all family photographs she had. And I also sent her the photographs, and she wrote in 2008 an autobiography where she also included the anthropological photographs. And here. And in the ITS record, I also found one of her brother. He came from Tarnow to Plaszow and was sent to Mauthausen and then to St. Valentin, and there he died in the last month of the war in March 1942. He was murdered. So, and both of the survivors I met, they say they are very happy and they are very sad also to get these photographs. In my research in Yad Vashem, I also found, I just listened to this testimony, and there were 4 brothers which were not measured because they fled to Russia, and 2 of them survived and emigrated later to Israel. And he had only 1 photograph of his brother. This is this one. Here. And here you can see that it's also very difficult because the photos were taken several years before the war and are standing in sharp contrast to the anthropological portraits. So it makes clear that the participants in the studies were made up before they were photographed. Birds were shaven, hair was cut, and headscarves were removed in meeting with the ideals of the anthropological portrait photographs. And here I found 2 other pictures among the pages of testimonies in the Hall of Names, which also show the sharp difference of the man before the measurement and after. So I'm almost finished. These are from 2 women. But for the majority of the families, I couldn't find any further information. So it's the photographs and the biographical information which I have from the data sheet are the only one which is left. But it shows also a document of the Holocaust and faith of these families where nobody survived, which I think is also a very important document. So I want to close here. Yeah, here. Okay. Thank you.